All right, let's get right into it. Today, we are breaking down a really detailed and pretty intense fictional war scenario. It's set in March of 2026, and by digging through a bunch of source documents, from situation reports to a presidential speech, we're going to piece together exactly how this hypothetical conflict gets started, what its goals are, and the kind of impact it has on the world, like right away.
So picture this. The year is 2026. It's March, and a full-blown war between a US-Israel coalition and Iran is already kicking off. The stakes here are just unbelievably high, and things are moving fast. So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at how the whole thing began. Then, the official reasons given for the war. We'll get a snapshot of the battlefield after 6 days, check out the massive economic ripples, and finally, we'll wrap up with what a scenario like this really tells us.
Okay, so first things first, how in the world did this all kick off? Well, the source material lays out a very specific and incredibly rapid timeline for how the fighting started.
Things moved fast, really fast. The whole thing ignites on February 28th with these massive coordinated airstrikes. Just 2 days later, a fictional President Trump is on TV explaining to the world why they did it. And by March 5th, we've got these detailed reports that paint a really clear picture of that first brutal week of fighting.
Now let's get into the why. Why did this operation happen in the first place? Well, the official justification and the main goals were laid out very clearly in that presidential address from our source material.
And here it is, the absolute core of the argument. The whole operation was sold as a preemptive strike, a defensive move. The logic was basically this. Stopping Iran before it could attach a nuclear weapon to a long-range missile was the last best chance to prevent a much, much bigger war down the line. So based on that one big reason, 4 very specific military goals were announced. First up, take out Iran's entire missile program. Second, completely neutralize its navy, especially its ability to cause trouble in the Persian Gulf. Third, and this is the big one, permanently stop its nuclear weapons program. And finally, cut off its support for armed proxy groups all across the region.
So, with those goals on the table, what did the battlefield actually look like by March 5th? I mean, what happened in just 6 days? The situation reports we have, they paint a pretty dramatic picture.
This right here tells you a lot about the strategy. The campaign kicked off with what's called a decapitation strike. I mean, think about it. By taking out Iran's supreme leader and dozens of other top officials in the first few hours, the idea was to create total chaos and just shatter their command and control right from the get-go.
And the human cost? Well, it was immediate and devastating. The reports estimate that in just that first week, over 1,000 people were killed inside Iran, and that's a mix of both military and civilian casualties.
The damage to Iran's regular military was just severe. Remember that goal to neutralize the Navy? Well, its Navy was basically wiped out, with 18 warships and a submarine reported sunk. It just shows how focused the attacks were on crippling Iran's power in strategic waters.
And the hit to Iran's ability to fire back was just as huge. The documents say that around 300 of their missile launchers were destroyed, which was a direct shot at that very first objective of the whole campaign.
And these images, they really capture the two sides of this coin, don't they? On one hand, you see the fire, the smoke, the pure destruction of military targets. And on the other, you see civilians, just trying to hold on to some sense of normalcy, some sense of faith, right in the middle of all that rubble. It's a powerful reminder of what war is really like.
So, here's the crucial question. Did all those strikes actually work? Well, according to the scenario's own reports, the answer is a pretty resounding yes. Iran threw everything it had on day 1, a massive storm of missiles and drones. But by day 6, its ability to hit back had just plummeted. We're talking a drop of over 70%.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit. Because a regional war like this never, ever stays regional. And in this scenario, the economic fallout was immediate and it was worldwide.
To really get the economic shock, you have to understand the Strait of Hormuz. Think of it like a global jugular vein for oil. It is one of the most critical choke points on the entire planet. Something like a fifth of the world's total oil supply has to pass through this one narrow stretch of water.
And in our 2026 scenario, this vital artery was basically clamped shut. Because of the threats, the attacks, and insurance companies pulling their coverage, commercial shipping just stopped. And that sent immediate shockwaves through the entire global supply chain.
And here is the direct result that affects everybody.
Oil prices, specifically Brent crude, just spiked. Before the fighting started, a barrel was about $72. Within a week, it jumped to $83, and there were fears it could go way, way higher.
All right, so let's step back from all the day-to-day action for a second. What are the big takeaways from this fictional but very thought-out war scenario?
You can really boil it down to 4 main ideas. First, there's the whole idea of a preemptive strike, justifying a war against a threat that might happen in the future. Second, the strategy of going for a quick leadership decapitation to create maximum chaos. Third, you see this intense focus on just annihilating conventional military hardware. And finally, you just can't escape the immediate global economic pain that comes from a conflict like this.
Which really just leaves us with this one big thought to chew on. The entire thing we've walked through is, of course, a fictional timeline built from hypothetical documents. But it really forces us to ask a very real question. How much does this scenario, with its mix of high-tech strikes, economic warfare, and preemptive logic, actually mirror what a real, major conflict could look like in the 21st century?